Welcome to Vivid Verses. If our words resonate with you, please subscribe, tap the like, and share your thoughts and your feelings in the comments. Now let's begin. You want a full autopsy. You want to know how a man walks away from a 10-year marriage and a 6-month pregnancy without looking back, leaving his wife holding a lease that costs more than the GDP of a small island nation. To understand the demolition, you have to understand the structure. I'm an architect. I don't say that to impress you. I say it so you understand how I process information. I look at load paths. I look at material fatigue. I look for the hairline fractures that inevitably turn into structural failures. When a building fails, it's rarely a surprise. It's a sequence of ignored warnings. My marriage to Amelia was a beautiful facade built on a sinkhole. We met in our late 20s. She was in PR. I was starting my firm. Back then, my potential was a selling point. She liked the idea of being an architect's wife, the sketches on napkins, the late nights, the vision. But potential is a futures market. Eventually, the contract expires and you have to deliver the commodity. Amelia's commodity was status. For the last 3 years, the critique had been constant. It wasn't screaming matches. We weren't that kind of couple. It was a low-level, ambient hum of disappointment. We'd go to dinner with her friends, women married to private equity guys, corporate litigators, men who didn't build things but move money around. We'd be at a place where a salad costs $30, and one of the husbands, let's say Todd, would mention his new boat or the second home in the vineyard. Amelia wouldn't say anything then. She'd wait until we were in the car. Todd just closed a deal for $4 million, she'd say, staring out the window. Good for Todd, I'd say. He's not smarter than you, Arthur. He just has ambition. He has drive. I can't be attracted to a man who is content with this. This was a paid-off condo in a transitioning neighborhood, a robust retirement account, and a firm that focused on sustainable, affordable housing integration. To her, this was stagnation. To me, it was stability. The intimacy dried up in direct correlation to my quarterly earnings. If I landed a municipal contract, she was tired. If I refused to lease a German SUV because the depreciation curve was idiotic, she was stressed. I became a roommate who paid the bills. I stayed because I'm methodical. Divorce is a messy, expensive renovation I didn't want to undertake. I figured I could reinforce the beams and ride out the storm. Then came the morning of May 12th. I was in the kitchen, reviewing the specs for a library retrofit. Amelia came in. She wasn't wearing her usual morning armor, the sharp blazer, the tighter-than-necessary skirt. She was in a silk robe, barefoot. Her hair was down. She sat on the counter. She pushed my blueprints aside. That bothered me. Disrespect for the work, but I didn't show it. Arthur, she said. Her eyes were wet. We need to talk. I put down my pen. Okay. I know things have been hard. I know I've been distant. She took my hand. Her palm was clammy. But the universe has a way of correcting course. She pulled a plastic stick out of her pocket and set on the granite. 2 lines. I'm pregnant, she said. I looked at the stick. Then I looked at her. It's a miracle, she whispered. This is it, Arthur. This is what brings us back. A family. I didn't react immediately. I have a habit of counting to 3 before I speak during sight crises. Pregnant, I repeated. 8 weeks, she said, beaming. I went to the doctor yesterday to confirm. Here is where the internal logic of the situation collapsed. I keep a log. It's not obsession, it's data management. I track my hours, my caloric intake, my sleep, and yes, my sexual activity. It helps me correlate stress with performance. We hadn't had sex since January. It was now mid-May. That's a 4-month gap. But there was a bigger structural issue. 6 years ago, I had a vasectomy. I never told Amelia. At the time, we were 3 years into the marriage. She was aggressively child-free. She wanted to travel to Bali. She wanted to focus on her career. She didn't want the body changes. I didn't want children either. I saw them as variables I couldn't control. I went to the clinic on a Tuesday. I paid cash. I did the follow-up testing 3 months later. The count was 0. I filed the paperwork in a mislabeled folder in my office archive and treated it as a completed project. I didn't tell her because at the time, it felt like discussing the plumbing schematics of a house we weren't planning to build anyway. It was a non-issue. So, looking at that stick, I knew 2 things. The child wasn't mine. She was banking on me not knowing that. I didn't flip the table. I didn't scream, "Whose is it?" That's amateur hour. When you find rot in the foundation, you don't kick the wall. You expose it. You trace it to the source. I squeezed her hand. "A miracle," I said. My voice was flat, but she read it as shock. "I know you're scared," she said, stroking my arm. "But we can do this. I promise, Arthur. I'm going to be the wife you deserve." The manipulation began 48 hours later. The nesting instinct kicked in, but it wasn't about cribs or diapers. It was about zip codes. She came to me with a listing on her iPad. The Enclave. You know the type of place. Gated, armed guard, artificial lakes. Houses that look like French chateaus, but are built with stucco and foam. "We can't raise a baby in the condo," she said. "The noise. The pollution. It's not safe, Arthur." I looked at the price. It was a lease. $18,000 a month. "Amelia, this is absurd," I said. "This is 3 times our current mortgage." "It's for the baby," she snapped. Her face changed instantly. The affectionate mother. Mask slipped, revealing the jagged edge beneath. "Are you really going to be that cheap? With your own child?" The stress of living here is already raising my blood pressure. Dr. Evans said I'm high risk. Do you want me to lose this baby because you want to hoard money? There it was. The leverage. She was using the pregnancy to hostage negotiate a lifestyle upgrade. She knew I wouldn't risk harming the baby. I told her I'd think about it. Then I called Vance. Vance is a forensic accountant who pivoted to private investigation. He doesn't wear a trench coat. He wears Brooks Brothers and works out of a clean office in the financial district. I've used him to vet contractors. I sat in his office and laid it out. Wife says she's pregnant. Vasectomy says she's not. She's pushing for a move to a high-security community immediately. I need to know who the father is, and I need to know why she's desperate to move now. Vance didn't blink. He just took notes. Timeline. Conception would have been mid-March, I said. I'll pull the logs, Vance said. Give me 3 days. While Vance dug, I played the role of the supportive husband. I went to the ultrasound. I watched the grainy image on the screen. The technician pointed out the heartbeat. Amelia cried. I held her hand. It was surreal watching a stranger grow inside my wife, knowing she was looking at me and seeing a bank draft. We toured the Enclave. The house she wanted was ridiculous. 6,000 square feet. A master suite the size of my office. It had that new construction smell, off-gassing carpet and adhesive. It's perfect, she whispered, standing in the empty nursery. Arthur, please. For us. I looked at the walls. Drywall was thin. I tapped it. Hollow. The lease is 2 years, I observed. That's a $500,000 commitment with utilities and fees. You can afford it, she said, her voice hardening. You just choose not to. Vance called me on day 3. Coffee, he said. We met. He slid a folder across the table. Marcus Vane, Vance said. The name was familiar. Marcus Vane was a developer, if you use the term loosely. He inherited a logistics empire, sold it, and now styled himself as a venture capitalist. He was also Amelia's ex from college. They had dated for 2 years before she met me. He's in town, I asked. He's been back for 6 months, Vance said. He's currently living in a penthouse at the St. Regis. Here are the credit card receipts for dinners. Here are the hotel logs. They spent a weekend in Napa in March. Business trip, she told you. PR conference, I corrected. Right. Well, the conference was Marcus Vane. I looked at the photo Vance had clipped to the file. Grainy, taken from a distance. Amelia and Marcus at a cafe table. He was holding her hand. So why isn't she with him? I asked. Marcus has 10 times my net worth. If she wants the lifestyle, he's the upgrade. Vance smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. That's the interesting part. Marcus is currently in the middle of a divorce from his second wife. A very litigious, very public divorce. There's a fidelity clause in the prenup. If he's proven to be stepping out before the decree is final, he loses a significant chunk of the estate. We're talking 8 figures. The schematic clicked into place. If Amelia announced she was carrying Marcus's child now, his wife would destroy him. He'd lose millions. He likely told Amelia to handle it. I was the containment vessel. The plan was obvious. Use me to secure the housing and the legitimacy. Get the name on the birth certificate. Wait for Marcus's divorce to finalize in a year or so. Then realize our marriage isn't working. Divorce me and slide over to Marcus with the kid and the luxury lease already signed. I was being subcontracted to raise another man's child until the zoning permit's cleared. I went back to the office. I sat in the dark for an hour. Then I called my broker and my accountant. I need to move some assets, I said, and I need to destroy my credit rating for about 3 weeks. The strategy was simple. In construction, if you can't stop the water, you divert it. I moved my liquid savings, the ambition, money she hated, into a series of trusts and business operating accounts. I legally separated my personal liability from the firm's assets. Then, I artificially spiked my debt utilization. I took out a massive line of credit against my equity for a speculative project and let it sit there. I maxed out 3 credit cards buying high-end materials for a job that didn't exist yet, which I could return later. On paper, my debt-to-income ratio hit the red zone. My credit score, usually in the 800s, plummeted into the low 600s overnight due to the risk exposure. I went home to Amelia. "We'll take the house," I said. She screamed. She actually jumped up and hugged me. "I knew it. I knew you'd step up." "There's a hiccup, though," I said. She pulled back. "What?" "I applied for the lease this morning. They rejected me." "What?" She went pale. "What?" "Business debt." I lied smoothly. I leveraged the firm to buy materials before the tariffs hit. My credit is shot for the next 6 months until the job's clear. They won't accept me as the primary guarantor. She paced the kitchen. "We have to get that house. I already told my mother we're moving." "There's a way," I said. "Your credit is perfect. I've paid off your cards every month for 10 years. She stopped pacing. "You signed the lease," I said. "Put in your name. I'll transfer the money to your account every month to cover it. But legally, you have to be the tenant. I'll just be listed as an occupant." She hesitated. For a second, the survival instinct in her flared up. Signing an $18,000 a month lease alone is terrifying. "I don't know, Arthur. It's just paper," I said, echoing her usual dismissal of my concerns. "I'm good for the money, you know that. Unless you don't trust me, I'll let that hang there." The implication was clear. "I'm stepping up for your baby. Are you going to let a signature stop us?" She looked at her stomach. She looked at the brochure of the enclave on the counter. She wanted the address. She wanted the status. "Okay," she said. "I'll sign it." She signed a 24-month binding lease the next day. The liability was entirely hers. We moved in a week later. I hired the movers. I unpacked the boxes. I watched her preen in the massive kitchen. She posted photos on Instagram instantly. New beginnings. #blessed. Then came the demand for the gender reveal. She wanted it to be the housewarming party. She invited everyone. Her family, her friends, my parents who couldn't make it, thankfully, and this was the piece de resistance. She invited Marcus Vane. She told me he was a potential investor for my firm. He loves architecture, Arthur. You should talk to him. It could be good for business. It was a power move. She wanted to parade her life in front of him. She wanted him to see her in the mansion, pregnant with his heir, while her dumb husband served drinks. It was a way to keep Marcus on the hook, showing him what was waiting for him. The party was yesterday. The backyard of the Enclave house is a monstrosity of landscaping. Waterfalls, fire pits, imported stone. Amelia had hired a catering team that cost more than my first car. There were 50 people there. The air was thick with perfume and the smell of roasted lamb. Amelia was wearing a white dress that accentuated the bump. She looked radiant. She was holding court, accepting gifts. I saw Marcus arrive. He looked slick. Linen suit, no tie. He walked with that confident, predatory gait of a man who hasn't heard the word no since childhood. He greeted Amelia with a kiss on the cheek that lingered a fraction of a second too long. I stood by the bar, drinking seltzer. I watched them. I watched her whisper something to him, and I watched him glance nervously at me. I checked my watch. 2 p.m. Time for the reveal. Amelia gathered everyone on the main patio. There was a giant black balloon tethered to a stone railing. The gimmick was she would pop it, and blue or pink confetti would rain down. "Everyone," she called out, tapping a spoon on a champagne glass. "Thank you all for coming to our new home. This has been such a journey." She looked at me with misty eyes. "Arthur and I are so blessed." The crowd murmured. Marcus was standing near the back, nursing a scotch. "Arthur, come up here," she beckoned. I set my glass down. I picked up the folder I had been keeping in my laptop bag by the back door. I walked up the steps to the patio. The music cut out. The crowd went silent, waiting for the speech. I stood next to her. She held out a pin for me to pop the balloon. "I don't need the pin," I said. My voice was calm, conversational. The acoustics of the patio carried it well. Amelia frowned. "What?" "I don't need to pop the balloon to know what it is," I said. I handed her the folder. "What is this?" she asked, a nervous smile plastered on her face. She thought it was a gift. A deed? A surprise? "Open it," I said. She opened the folder. The first page was a copy of my medical records from the urology clinic, highlighting the date of the vasectomy, 6 years ago, highlighting the 0 sperm count confirmed annually. I watched her eyes scan the page. I saw the moment the comprehension hit. It wasn't confusion. It was terror. Her hand trembled. "Arthur," she whispered. "This isn't—" "Keep reading," I said. She turned the page. The surveillance log. The photos of her and Marcus at the St. Regis. The timeline of the business trip. She looked up. Her face was gray. She looked at the crowd, who were starting to sense that this wasn't part of the show. She looked at Marcus. Marcus saw the paper. He saw her face. He didn't know exactly what was in there, but he knew the blast radius was expanding. He set his drink down on a planter. "Arthur, can we go inside?" Amelia asked. Her voice was shaking. "Please." "No need," I said. "I'm done." "What do you mean?" "The third document," I said. "It's the divorce filing. My lawyer submitted it this morning." "You can't," she hissed, grabbing my wrist. Her grip was desperate. "We have the lease. The baby." I gently removed her hand from my arm. "Correction," I said. "You have the lease. You signed it as the sole tenant." I checked the clause. Breaking it requires the full 24 months to be paid out. That's roughly $430,000. She gasped, a sound like a tire losing air. As for the baby, I turned and looked directly at Marcus. He froze. "I imagine Mr. Vane can help you with the logistics. Although, judging by the prenup details in his current divorce file, also in the folder, I doubt he'll be very liquid for a while." The crowd was dead silent. You could hear the fountain gurgling. "Arthur!" she screamed, the facade finally cracking completely. "You can't leave me here. You can't do this." "It's a matter of structural integrity." "Amelia," I said. I don't invest in condemned properties. I turned and walked down the steps. I walked past her friends. I walked past the catering staff who were staring at their shoes. I walked past Marcus, who was already pulling his phone out, presumably to call his lawyer before his wife found out. I walked through the house I hated. I walked past the nursery with the sage green walls and the imported crib. I got into my car. It was already packed with my clothes, my files, and my hard drives. I drove out of the enclave. The gate guard waved at me. I waved back. I'm writing this from a hotel suite downtown. It's small, quiet, and efficient. My phone has been buzzing for hours. Amelia, her mother, a number I assume is Marcus's lawyer. I haven't answered. I check my bank account. The funds are secure. The credit hit will heal in a few months. I'm looking at a blank sheet of drafting paper. For the first time in 10 years, I don't have to worry about the overhead. I could just build. Thank you for listening. That brings today's story to a close. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing. See you next time.